This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Marriott's on the move.
What?
Marriott's on the move.
Again?
Marriott's on the move.
If you're dreaming about moving to a new city to pursue the life of your dreams, this podcast is for you. Moving 18 times in 23 years to 5 of America's top cities, I know it's not easy to make those decisions alone. I help you develop the dream, the plan, and the move, even if we need to get scrappy to get you there. I'll be doing interviews, career and city spotlights, and sharing my crazy moving stories, tips, tricks, and scams to avoid. Traveling to explore your dreams has never been easier. Now let's get moving. Welcome to the show, everyone. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for our guest today. Her name is Jannette Anderson, and her title is the Why Whisperer because she is passionate about helping you figure out why you do what you do so that you can be the difference that only you can be, which I absolutely love. She is a best-selling author, an international speaker, and a business development expert with over 38 years of strategic planning, sales, and marketing experience. Jannette did her time in the corporate trenches, teaching at university and colleges and within larger companies throughout North America. And she is still stupidly in love with her work after almost 4 decades of doing it. Now, however, she does it from beaches and jungles and wherever her location-independent lifestyle might take her, which is why I wanted her to be on the show, because I met her through a mutual friend of mine. His name is Vinny Potestivo, and we love Vinny. But when she introduced herself, she said that she was polyhomerous, and I was like, I don't know what that means, but I need to because I absolutely love whatever that means. Jannette, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Marietta. I'm so happy to be here. Yep, love us some Vinny. And polyhomerous. I used to say homeless, but then people would get really distressed. So now I say polyhomerous and they just kind of get confused. But I got it from a friend who, instead of polyamorous, where you have multiple lovers or wives or partners or whatever, I'm polyhomerous. I have many homes, many places I go, many places I live. They're not all my homes, but I live in them.
Well, where are you from originally?
Well, originally Calgary, Alberta. It is actually where I am right now.
Oh.
Somewhat regretfully, because it's snowed. It's May, for the love of God.
Oh my gosh.
But I've been living a mobile lifestyle for almost 9 years now, full time. And prior to that, I traveled a lot.
Yeah. Well, so you've lived all over because before we hit record, I told you that I was in Charlotte, and you tell us all where you've lived.
Oh, I don't think your podcast is long
It's
enough.
not long enough.
So over the course of my life, I couldn't actually remember all the places I've been, but I moved 27 times in the first 29 years of my life. I partially because my mother got married numerous times, partially because we were running away from some of those marriages. I lived throughout the U.S. I lived in San Francisco, LA, San Diego, Boulder, Colorado, Denver, Colorado, Chattanooga, Tennessee, Raleigh, North Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina, Gainesville and Tallahassee, Florida, Atlanta, Boston, and New York. I think I got them all. And have lived in, for various periods, at Orlando and various other places, New Orleans, Phoenix, Yuma, California, various places. I have been to all of the states and every province in Canada, and 33 countries and counting. Although, sometimes I feel like a piker. I know people who've been to over 100 countries and 150 countries. So, yeah, I think I get around, but there's people who have lapped me a couple of times.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, maybe we need to have them on the show too, because that sounds exhausting, but also really cool. People ask me this, and it's really hard for me to answer because I liked everywhere for different reasons. But do you have a couple fan faves on that list?
Well, you know what? I often say that, the saying, home is where the heart is.
Mhm.
I say heart is where your home is. So
Oh,
wherever I am plugged in to community, or I'm with friends, or I'm with people that I enjoy, that's home, right? So
yeah.
um and there's one of the things that as a mobile lifestyle you need to make that switch. It is what keeps you really grounded and happy. Uh, in terms of nature, my favorite place on the planet, well, there's a few, but is Iguazu Falls in South America. Peru is one of my favorite places for a variety of reasons, Machu Picchu and so forth.
It's on
To
my bucket
live,
list. Mhm.
I tend to, it's worth it. Almost
Is
died,
it?
but it's worth it.
Yeah.
In terms of places to live, I love heat. Not the kind that I sweat sitting still in the shade. So
Mhm.
wherever I go, I'm always hot, except for here right now.
Yeah.
And so I tend to like more tropical places, islands, Florida, California, places like that. That's why I created my mobile lifestyle. Is
Yeah.
I'm pathologically allergic to winter, and I whined about it for, I don't know, a good 25, 28 years. Finally, I got sick of my own whining. Like, my friends and
Mm.
family were sick of it long before. And so I started to do mobile living with a few different variations. Like, I got roommates, and so I left roommates in my house, or I rented my house out, or because I had a house for 15 years. Um, that didn't work well. It
Right.
didn't work well. It bugged me to pay mortgages or rent or whatever in two places at once when
Yeah.
I could only be in one spot at once. And so I finally just said, okay, that's it. I got to sell the house. It was the final straw in that particular equation. Was I came home from an extended travel, um, and my roommates had done about $25,000 worth of damage to my house. So I was like,
Oh my
okay, that's it.
gosh.
I'm done with that.
What did they
So,
do?
oh, they broke holes in walls and pulled down tiles in the shower, and threw an aerosol can in the fireplace and burnt the rug, and yeah, a lot of stupid stuff. Yeah.
Why?
So yeah, I ended up doing the renos, selling the house, and I haven't looked back since then. Like,
Oh,
there's every once in a while I kind of go, well, I could have a base, but
yeah.
uh most of the idea, I would never get a house again that required maintenance and all the rest of it.
Yep.
Completely work-free condo, maybe.
Yeah.
Not anytime soon, but maybe.
I honestly, like, I go back and forth with that. I know people that absolutely love the investment of real estate. I
Yeah.
personally am very risk averse, and I don't
Yeah.
love the idea of roommates being in there that could trash my place.
Yeah.
But I also don't love the fact that, like, if somebody moved out and I couldn't find somebody, now I'm paying two mortgages, or like,
Hmm.
I know buying a house is the American dream, and I have a ton of real estate agents that are probably going to unfollow me after saying this. But the year that I like rented in between, like, selling my house that I literally had this beautiful house in the south side of Chicago, in Orland Park, that my dad and I renovate. I mean, like, we pulled walls down. I mean, we did all the things. They had never done any renovations since they built the place 40 years before. And we're talking like carpet in the kitchen. I mean, there were some beautiful, weird tiles that I like kept in there because they just were so ornate and you can't get that anymore. But
Yeah.
I mean, my dad like unscrewed a screw in the cabinet and the whole entire thing came down. Like, we were one pan away from like disaster in that kitchen. And I finished the renovation, and then I found out I was getting transferred down to Southern Illinois, so I didn't even get to enjoy it. And I remember like the couple that ended up buying it from me, like, I was home when they came and did the walkthrough, and they were very, I mean, just a lovely couple. Like, we're Facebook friends, the Lopez's. They're just wonderful people, and they had two dogs, and their dogs love the yard like my dogs did. But it was like, that year between when I like was in Central Illinois and came to Charlotte, I rented while I was building my house, and I'm like, this is amazing. Like, I forgot how carefree it is to rent and not have all of, like, I need to do an episode just on all the expenses you pay for when you have a house, like lawn care and
Yes.
pest control and things that people don't think about. It's crazy.
Exactly. Yes, lawn fertilizer and snow removal equipment, depending on where you live, and all the things that break down.
Yeah,
Never when you want them to and can afford
no,
it. And
right.
yeah. I mean, there are aspects to it that are nice,
Yeah.
but frankly, yeah, not my cup of tea anymore.
Yeah, I would rather like bank it in a mutual fund and kind of do what you're doing. So I have people
Yeah.
all the time that tell me like they want to just put their stuff in storage and like get a mobile sprinter van and like hit the wide open. So is that what you're doing, or do you like Airbnb or use Furnished Finder? Like what does mobile mean to Jannette Anderson?
Okay, well, no, I don't have a Sprinter van or an RV or trailer yet. I bought a truck as the first step towards this experiment. Prior to that, my mobile lifestyle was basically kind of a real hybrid. I've done going and renting, becoming a roommate in someone's home for 3, 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, then moving on. I have done Airbnb. I have done trusted house sitters and house and pet sitting and
Oh, that's
doing,
genius.
shorter. Oh yeah, it actually
Yeah.
is really good. And especially if you like pets, but
Yeah.
don't want to travel with a pet, it's your way to get your furry requirement
Free
filled
furry,
without
furry fully
having the
feeling.
responsibility and the vet bills. It's
Yeah.
great. It's an awesome thing. I did it for the better part of last year. And last year, my expenses for accommodations were under $3,000 because I spent most of the year living free in really nice places,
Yeah.
houses, really nice ones, and I got to take care of pets, and didn't have the responsibility. It's like being a grandparent; you can give them back at the end of the
Yeah.
day, and you don't have to take care of them, but you get to enjoy them while they're there, right?
Yeah.
Uh, that was great. The only part of that piece that I didn't like is it was a little too, the move was a little too often, which if you're
Mm,
still working like I am, that can be quite disruptive. So pretty much every variation that you can name, I've done.
yeah.
What I did buy the truck for was to see if I liked doing long distance driving, because I've done a lot of driving in my life, but I wanted to see as a lifestyle, would I want an RV? Would I want to pull a trailer?
Yeah.
Um, and I love the long distance driving. Like I drove from Calgary, Alberta to Orlando, Florida a couple of times, Phoenix, Mexico, 5, 6 days of driving. Love it. I get to listen to all my audiobooks and it's my office on wheels. I get caught up on my calls and it's
Yeah.
great. Um, and I will potentially get an RV or a trailer, probably this winter.
You
That's
can rent
the
them now. I just like learned
yes,
this like in the last like year or two, and what a genius idea. Like
yeah,
rent an RV or like an Airstream or something like that. And then again, like the grandchildren, you give it back and you don't have that like
yes.
overhead. I will
You
say
you
though,
can do that. The rentals tend to be pretty expensive, but
do
if you
they?
want to test out the lifestyle, it's a good idea. If you are depending on, if you're kind of flip savvy, you
Yeah.
can also buy it and typically sell it for as much or sometimes more, depending on what you invest in. You have to, do the research and stuff. But
Yeah.
for instance, Airstreams are always super popular.
Yeah.
So you can probably rent it, use it, and sell it, or buy it, use it, and sell it for the same amount.
And it's hard. Those are hard to get too. I know. Well, especially like during the pandemic, because everybody like bought them all out. But I will say, like, if you are watching on YouTube, I'm clearly not in my home office. I'm in Florence, South Carolina. I have a business trip that I'm on, and this was a road trip for me, and it was 2.5 hours. I called one of my friends like an hour and a half in. I'm like, she's a pharmaceutical sales rep. I'm like, I don't know how you drive all day. Like, I'm exhausted, and I have an hour to go. And she's like, it's a 2.5 hour trip. And I was like, I don't know if I could do the mobile lifestyle. Like being on the, like even when I drive to Chicago, it's a lot. But I say that I'm in a hotel because all of a sudden the air just kicked in, even though I put it up to like 75, so it would not kick in. So if you hear some random background noise,
And here.
that's what it is. I'm glad you can't hear it,
Yeah.
but yeah, but I don't know. Like from a routine perspective, like I have so many questions. Like where do you send your mail? Where does your mail go? Things like that.
Boom. Play it. Have you ever listened to a commercial on the radio or a podcast and thought, I could totally do that? Well, I am challenging you today. Being a voiceover artist is an amazing side hustle that can be done from the comforts of your own home. Heck, it can be an amazing career. Just ask Jesse Carroll. Jesse's got over 1,000 voiceover credits to his name. Ever watch Backroad Truckers? He's the narrator. He's also done a ton of commercials for brands you would definitely recognize. If you're ready to try your hand at voiceovers, go to marriottsonthemove.com and head to my favorites page to learn more about his new digital course and coaching package. If you use code MOTM, you'll get 20% off at checkout.
Have you heard of Monat or Modern Nature? I hadn't either before my friend Monica was raving about their skincare products that she's obsessed with. I took their hair quiz to find out which product line would be best for me since I just happen to be looking for new shampoo and conditioner, and I signed up for their VIP package that got me a little bit of everything to try out. Turns out they are the first anti-aging hair care line in the world, which I didn't even know was a thing, and their products are gluten-free, vegan, and Leaping Bunny certified, which means they're never tested on animals. Now I'm obsessed with their rich formulations that feature botanical extracts, essential oils, and other naturally based ingredients, and I want to share those products with you. I'll put the link in the show notes, or you can hit the faves page on my website. It's safe, EU approved, and clinically tested by third parties, so essentially, robustness approved. Now back to the show.
Okay, so some practical things. My best friend lives in Calgary, and she owns a house, and so I've been using her mail address because you can get a box, but if you get as much mail as I do, and I've mostly put everything online, but you still get tax receipts and all this kind of stuff and random mail. It would overflow because I typically travel and I'm gone for at least 6 months a year, and when I'm in Alberta. Or somewhere home, I might still, like, I'm doing a speaking tour this summer, so I'll be gone a lot. I can't use a mailbox service. You can get mail forwarding services. I just send it to my friend's house. She recently just moved, so I now need to go in and literally change, because I just had to do this for a credit card that got hacked. You don't realize how many places your information is until you have to go and change it all. And so I now will literally need to go into about 70 places and change my address. But she'll be in the next place for a few years. So anyways, that's where my mail goes. Some of the, there's a bunch of different things that people don't think about when they think about mobile lifestyle. There's a lot of different ways to do it. You can do short term, you can do long term, you can do, like, Canadian snowbirds go down to Phoenix or wherever for 6 months and then they go back. That's a mobile lifestyle. You could move overseas for 2 years and then come home. That's a mobile lifestyle. You can be 1 week in each spot and do that. I find that disruptive to my business. So I try and stay at least a month in each place that I go, and ideally 2 to 3 months. I just got back from being in Florida for January through to mid-May. And renting with a friend that I know down there, and then went up and visited some friends in Virginia on the way home, and then came back. I flew this time. I didn't drive, so I didn't have my vehicle, but I had access to one. Some of the practical things you need to figure out is what kind of travel do you like? There's a lot of advantages to having your vehicle. Like, you don't have to rent and you don't have to Uber everywhere. Right. But if you work at home, you don't actually use your vehicle a lot. And often Ubering and stuff can be cheaper than driving your own vehicle. What makes you feel like you've got freedom versus a real constraint that is the trade-off is not worth it for you? Flying used to be quite a pain in the butt because I'd go for 4 months and I don't travel light. So I'd have, when I came back from Florida, not this last time, but the time before, I had 4 large suitcases. Have you ever tried to move 4 large suitcases by yourself? It is not an easy task.
No.
So I now travel lighter. I have 1 big suitcase, 1 carry-on, a backpack, and a little carry thing. It's still too much. But when you travel with your office, you need lights, you need your mic, you need your stand for your computer and your second monitor. And, that adds.
My road trip, I I literally feel like I packed. I think in general, you pack more when you know you're just throwing it in the car because you're like, oh, this is
Yeah,
my, like my this. I'll just throw it in the bag. And then all of a sudden, like I'm
exactly.
walking in here and she's like, you're checking in for one night. And I have a box with all my podcasting stuff, a bag of things that I randomly was like, what if I need this? And then my
Yeah.
suitcase and my work bag. And I'm like, yeah,
Yes.
just one day. And she's like, okay. And she just, I mean, yeah.
Well, and I think, there's a number of reasons why I went mobile. One of them was I hate winter and I want to have more flexibility. Another is I love travel and adventure, and so it gave me more freedom to do that.
Yeah.
The part of the practicality of it as well was I got home from a vacation and I was like, I don't want to be here. I should sell my house. And I looked around Mariette and I had these big, beautiful trees. I had these big, huge ficuses, several, like 4 or 5 of them in my home. And I looked at one of them and I burst into tears and went, I don't want to leave my plants because I love my plants. And it was somewhat representative, but it was also quite literal. I love my plants.
Yeah.
And I stopped and I thought, and I kind of wiped my tears and I went, really? You can't have your ideal life because of a ficus? Seriously? I'm pretty sure they have plants in other places.
Yeah.
So I got a grip and I decided that and really what that represented to me was my stuff owned me. I didn't own my
Yeah.
stuff. And I was feeling, because I'd moved so much, when I bought my house, I did what I called power nesting. Other people might say just the side of hoarding. I had, like, for instance, had 8 bookshelves full, like big
Oh,
bookshelves full of books. I love reading.
yeah.
I read maybe a third of them, but I love books. I had 300 CDs. I had pretty much every craft and art thing that you could imagine, stained glass, jewelry making, etc. So when I finally decided it was time to sell my house, I had 2 garage sales, one a year apart. The first one, I sold $1,400 worth of stuff, and there was only 5 items over $10.
Oh my God.
That just lets you know I had a lot of
Yeah, because I
stuff.
was gonna say,
And
I
the
think the
second
average
one,
is like $300 for a garage sale,
yeah,
so that
yeah,
is a
no,
lot.
$1,400 and 5 items over $10. The rest were like $1, $1.50, 25 cents, So it takes a
Yeah.
lot of stuff to make up that much. And then the next one I had was $1,600. And again, there was only, I think, 6 or 7 items that were more than $10. They were 25 or 50 or whatever. And I still had so much stuff that I gave away. And I got it down to a 10 by 10 storage unit. And I still felt heavy with stuff. So since then, I've done 2 downsizings, more, and now have a 5 by 10. I tried to get it down to a 5 by 5, and I just couldn't quite do it. It just would have been too hard to get stuff out. So I left it in 5 by 10. But every single time I've shed stuff, I've gotten lighter. It's felt less, like I feel less burdened by
Yeah.
stuff. We are told to be a consumer society, and I love stuff,
Yeah.
but like I said, it got to the point where my belongings owned me. I didn't own them.
Yeah.
And I decided that was not how I wanted to be. So I changed it.
There are 3 people that I know that last year their houses burned down. Which is like I don't remember ever really hearing of anybody's house burned down. Like my aunt, in the 90s or 80s or 90s or something when we were kids. But it was so interesting because when that happened, like the first one happened, it was my aunt, and then my friend Natalie, who has been on the show, Natalie Luke, hers burned down. And they were freak accidents. Like my aunt's, like some guy that was on drugs broke into her house and a bunch of other people's houses and like was looking for drugs and set it on fire. Just a really random situation. Natalie's, there was an act, like a fire in the garage that just like quickly went up and like out of control before they even knew it. And then my cousin, her apartment building burned down and she lost a cat. My aunt lost 3 cats and her dog. I get like just like all of this stuff, but it really put it in perspective for me. And I just found myself just de-shedding. Like when my cousin lost all of her stuff, she lost all of her clothes, and her and I are a similar size. So I went through my closet and, like all of my toiletries and all, I mean, just everything. And I sent her 2 gigantic boxes of things.
Hmm.
And I don't even know what I gave her. And I was like,
Yeah.
gosh, that is perspective right there. Like, you
Hmm.
have too much when you can shed all that stuff and it doesn't even look like you got rid of anything, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and my stuff's been sitting in storage for 9 years now.
Right.
I
You don't miss
haven't,
it.
I've needed a few things occasionally.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I just end up buying it
Buying it.
and using it, and because to go get it out of storage is too much of a pain.
Yep.
So that's why the last time I did a downsizing, I hired a professional organizer to help me, because so much of it was like down to kind of what I thought I should keep. And we got rid of, I would say, let's say the equivalent of 15 to 20 bins worth of stuff, clothes,
Wow.
household items, etc. And I still have too much stuff. Like
Yeah.
yeah, it is one of the freedoms and joys of creating a mobile lifestyle is you lighten up, literally.
Yeah.
One of the challenges is there's times where you don't have what you want. You don't have your things, and
Yeah.
there's some comfort in having your things. But most of the time, I would have a hard time if we hadn't just done that, re-downsizing. I would have a hard time telling you what I've even got in storage.
Yeah.
So, and it's really kind of a waste of money. I've kept the things that I think would be really important to kind of start at an apartment or a condo or whatever, if I want to do that again,
Yeah.
that are expensive to replace. But frankly, I'm sure I've paid in storage fees as much or more as what it would
What
cost
you
to
could
replace
buy.
those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
so, so practically speaking, there really isn't any point. There's maybe 5 bins of things that are mementos and stuff that I really would keep no matter what.
Yeah.
Um, so there's some practical things that I think most people don't think about when it comes to a mobile lifestyle. Um, there's 3 things that I always tell people. One is that shift of home is where the heart is. It really, when you shift to heart is where your home is, then it really makes you come home to yourself. It makes you really tune in. Who am I? Who do I want to be? What do I want? How do I create that? Because this is where you live now, is in your
Yeah.
life, in your experience, not in your
And you can't take any of
environment.
that with
And
you when you go,
yeah, exactly.
so
Well, actually, that's a really good line. I should write that down. You live in your experience, not your environment.
yeah.
Most people live in their environment and they don't really think about the quality of the experience of their life. So for me, that was one thing, is making that shift. The second part of that is you have to work harder to stay connected to people back home,
Mm.
um, or the people in your life that matter to you, because you're off having an adventure and you're busy and you got things going on. They're back home with what's going on. When you reconnect, there's a disconnect there quite often. Yes, you might connect on a heart basis, you've been friends forever,
Yeah.
but your lives are so no longer parallel and you have less shared experiences. So you really need to make an extra effort to stay plugged into the people back home. Otherwise, when you get back, they're kind of strangers, and that's hard. That's really hard.
Yeah.
You don't want to lose those connections. And sometimes that's challenging because we're off having these adventures and so forth. And I don't actually like talking on the phone. And a lot of
Mm.
my friends don't like getting on Zoom with me. And I'm on Zoom all day long. So frankly, I don't want to do another Zoom call at
Right.
night
I
either.
feel you on that one.
So it takes some time, it takes some effort to do the
Yeah.
reach outs. And I find when I don't, I'm not as happy and grounded. And those relationships take a little longer to put back on track when I get back. So that's one thing. Really attend to the relationships more than you think you need to. And the other thing is there's this phenomenon called decision fatigue that I
Mm.
wasn't aware of prior to this, but
Ooh, share
they've
more.
done studies and people make bad decisions if they have too many decisions to make. So they studied 2 groups and they made one group make a bunch of choices and decisions. And then
Yeah.
they put them in a room and said, if you don't eat the cookies, you get $200. If you eat the cookie right away, you don't, or whatever. Some kind of thing that was an immediate gratification test. And then a group that didn't make a bunch of decisions, same test. The people who didn't make a bunch of decisions made a better decision about the immediate gratification money choice. The ones who'd made a lot of decisions just basically said, F it, I'm just eating the cookie.
Wow.
And I've really seen that with myself. We create a mobile lifestyle to have freedom, and the irony is we need more structure to be able to be free.
Yeah.
We need to take some of the freedom away to not have everything be a choice. Because mine is really flexible. I don't have kids, I don't have a pet, I don't have properties, etc. I don't have a partner. So I'm like can go anywhere anytime, really,
Yeah.
as long
You
as
do
I've
what you
got
want.
internet. I'm in
Yeah.
business, right?
Yeah.
So there needs to be some parameters set up. Otherwise, you start making bad choices. And when you're a business person, that's not good.
Right.
So
Right.
putting some structure in place helps. And that could be how long you're going to be in places, what kind of living conditions. There can be different ways that you do that, but you got to really watch decision fatigue. And that's not anything that people tell you about.
Right.
And the other thing that I really recommend to people, and it can be a challenge for introverts, but I recommend it for everyone, is you got to plug into community immediately wherever you go. I don't care if you're only there for a week.
Mhm.
Go out and meet some people. Because otherwise you have this phenomenon of I travel a lot and I'm in a lot of places, but I'm not really in those places.
Yeah.
I don't really experience the place. It's just another room
You're
in another
passing through.
place, and I could be anywhere.
Yeah.
So you don't really have the experience of being there unless you plug into the community and do something. Go to a
Love that.
play, go to a meetup group, go out to a karaoke night, do something. And if you're there for a longer period, I highly recommend that you plug into an expat community or a community of interest so that you get kind of landed, even if you're only going to be there for a month or two,
Yeah.
and engaged with some people that will help you remember the place, because we don't remember the places most of the time
Yeah.
for the place. We remember it for the experience we had there. And most of the time, that's the people.
You know, it's funny you say that. Actually, I'm wondering if I should turn a light on. Am I getting really dark? Can you see me okay? I feel
It
like
was,
the sun went down.
you just got a little brighter there, but yes,
Okay.
it's pretty dark. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, because the sun went down and I have the windows open, but I didn't turn the lights on. So if
Yeah.
it gets too dark, just let me know. But a
Okay.
funny story, my friend Brenda, she loves solo traveling and she has experienced the world. She's gone everywhere. She went to Sri Lanka last year, and she went to Patagonia a couple years ago. And one of the trips that she had, and I don't remember where she was going for this particular trip, but she had a layover in Dubai and she met these people who happened to be from Chicago. And she had this awesome story. They spent a couple hours together and then she went off to wherever she was going and then they went off to wherever they were going, but they had connected. They were like in the suburbs of Chicago. She lives right downtown. And so fast forward like a year or two, and Brenda has a travel sweater that she travels in. I think we all have those comfy clothes that we love. And I mean,
Yeah.
I have a pair of Viore pants that I like practically live in when I travel. They're just so soft. And she's got her travel sweater and it's got flowers on it and stuff. And they're in Patagonia. They're on their way to like go to some mountain, probably the big one. And they stop at this little like convenience store to just like, run to the bath. And they're on a bus. They've got like 10 people with them in the travel group. And they go in and run to the bathroom. And I mean, and we're talking in the middle of nowhere. We're in Patagonia and she's like in this convenience store and she hears Brenda and she turns around and it's the people from Dubai that are actually from Chicago. And she had not seen them when she was in Chicago, but she runs into them a year later or two, however long it was, but in Patagonia. Like, to
Yeah.
me, she remembers her Dubai experience because they made the experience so great,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
they're friends and they keep in touch. But like, that's a great example of what you just said. Like, yeah, I remember the people. I don't necessarily remember where I went, but you had me at karaoke. So I think that's a great
Yes.
idea. When you go somewhere, find a karaoke place. They're the funnest people out there. They're willing to put themselves out on the line and they talk to
Yeah.
everyone. So I
Yes,
absolutely love that
exactly.
advice. Do you have like a
Well, and
routine that you do wherever you go? Like for me, when I travel, like I find a craft coffee shop and I have a good cup of coffee in the morning. Like that's my thing. But do
yeah.
you have any habits like that?
Well, because I work a lot, my first thing that I do is make sure that there's an internet restaurant somewhere close by in case wherever I am, the internet goes out.
Oh,
So I find a couple places in the neighborhood that are my backups. And sometimes I really like working in restaurants because the white noise, and I
mm,
can sit there and people will bring me tea or pop or whatever, and I can just sit there and work. And when it's lunchtime, then they bring me lunch. So
yes.
that's kind of my go-to. Um, I think the biggest part of the routine is that I set up um, kind of my space, my whatever that might be. So
Yeah.
right now, for example, I'm here at a friend's house for um, a month, and so I've kind of set up my unpack, set up my space, have my things the way I like them.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of things that I travel with. I travel with a one, kind of card deck that I sometimes will pull a card in the morning. But yep,
Is it just like
my
daily
cup of tea,
affirmations or
some
something?
reading, some,
Yeah.
a little bit of meditation, and then off we go on the day. Um, I'm less routine driven and more what I need to do actually is schedule more things in so that I will do them, especially social and especially things that get me
Mm.
out, because I'm really passionate about what I do. I'm building out the Maturepreneur world. And I would, if my
You get in
body
the
would let me,
zone.
I'd just work 14 hours a day, every day. Right.
Yeah.
So part of it is being where you are, like I said before. And you mentioned something just a few minutes ago that reminded me of something that's the other thing I would tell people who want to travel or live a mobile lifestyle. Really, really check into your beliefs about, or do you live in a malevolent or a benevolent universe?
Ooh.
Because if you believe you live in a malevolent universe,
Yeah.
it may not be for you because you're going to be stressed out and looking for issues and problems. And guess what? You're going to attract them. I
Yeah.
believe you get what you expect. So when I traveled through Central and South America for 7 months on my own, people would come up to me all the time and say, "Oh, you can't travel by yourself. It's not safe. Aren't you scared?" And it's like, why would I be scared? There's good people everywhere, whether I'm in
Yeah.
Calgary or, Machu Picchu. Why would I be scared?
Yeah.
And yes, there's assholes everywhere too, but
Right.
you attract what you expect. And I was in um not Lake Titicaca, a different lake that I can't remember right now, in Guatemala. And this woman, I was at a youth hostel. This woman came up to me. I was 57 at the time of this trip, I think. She came up to me and she said, "Oh, I hear you." And I could see like a neon victim sign above her head. She, from across the room, came up to me and said, "I hear you're traveling alone. You can't do that. That's not safe. People are out to get you. They're going to hurt you. They're going to harm you. You can't travel by yourself. We should travel together." And I said, "Well, no, I actually think people are out to help me. And that's been my experience." "Oh, no, no, no. I've been mugged 7 times in 6 weeks. We should travel together. You'll be safer." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't think so, honey. I've been
No.
traveling for 6 months and had zero problems. I don't think I'll be safer if I travel with you."
Yeah.
I really encourage people to think about, um, if you believe that you're going to get what you expect goodness, and you're going to find that. Yes, you can't walk down dark back alleys
Right.
anywhere at night without being, on guard and so forth. You have to be smart, but that doesn't mean you have to be that the rest of the world is unsafe and where you live is safe. Like, I
Yeah.
can get mugged in Calgary as easily as I could in the back streets of Rio,
Right.
but you need to be smart, but not, like I said, I believe you get what you expect. So part of the joy of a mobile lifestyle is, if you're a curious person, it's a source of opportunities to learn and grow. Mostly what it does for me, and part of the reason I chose it at a deeper level, is it forces me to trust. It
Mm.
forces me to relax into the arms of trust when it's not my default. It forces me to trust in the flow of life. It forces me to learn at an experiential level that I'm okay. I've always been okay. I'm not going to be, destitute tomorrow. It really does give you the opportunity to trust yourself, to
Hmm.
trust
The
life and
universe and
people,
God's
and to
timing.
trust the universe.
Yeah.
Um, it doesn't mean bad stuff doesn't happen. That's the kind of thing that's called life,
Hmm.
but it really does require that kind of ability to flow with life, and that's not for everyone. Most of
I
my
love that.
friends say
Like,
there's no way I could do what you do.
yeah, malevolence over benevolence. I think that that
Yeah,
is a really important mindset shift for a lot of people. And when they do make that mindset shift, it can open up a world of possibilities. I mean, I have a friend that she's going out on maternity leave soon, and she just said, I'm so tired. I mean, granted, she's, gonna about to birth a child. Like, I'm sure
yeah,
that's very fatigue inducing to be 9 months
yeah,
pregnant. But she's like, I know it's just gonna get worse. And I said, well, here's an opportunity for you to shift that mindset. Maybe you think of it as you're going to get recharged with all this baby energy and it's going to be the best thing ever because it doesn't last very long. And, and I was like,
yeah,
be grateful for that. Like, I'm
yeah,
47, never married, no kids, don't even have any pets. Like, there's a lot of people wishing for what you're potentially complaining about, but she instantly brought it back, was like, you know what, you're right. I can, and she said, I'm recharging with love for this brand new baby that I'm so excited for, and it's just
yeah,
like that quick. You can make that decision to choose
yes,
benevolence over malevolence. I love that. I
yes,
absolutely love
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So you're
And
going on a speaking tour.
I am, yes,
Yeah.
I'm really excited about it. And I was just going to say, one of the biggest markets or cohorts that are moving into mobile living, there's kind of two ends of the spectrum, the younger and the older people.
Yeah.
So for a lot of younger people who are living a gig lifestyle, gig economy, there's lots of them. And there are some really great programs if you want to do something where you're not on your own. I'm trying to think of the name of a couple of them. I should have written them down, but you can search mobile lifestyle companies, and you can, like, for instance, go to 12 countries in the world in a year, and you
Oh,
stay for a month in one, and they arrange co-working space, and you're traveling with, by and large, the same group of people, and most of them are cross-referencing and supporting each other, copywriters and website developers and stuff.
yeah.
That tends to be more the younger market, but there are also older people who do it, um, and that can be really cool because someone else facilitates the travel arrangements and all of that. It's not super expensive. There's a lot of cruise ships now that are being retrofitted to be live aboard. And so you
Oh,
can
wow.
literally just travel around the world living aboard. So you have a mobile lifestyle, but you have your own space and you stay there.
Wait, what
Um,
is this called? Because I missed it because I was so distracted with the parking lot lights coming on and now shining in my eyes.
so there's a lot of cruise ships, not a lot. There are some cruise ships
Yeah.
now that are catering to the mobile lifestyle crowd that are live aboard. So
Mm.
you buy a cabin or you rent a cabin. And there's one that I know of that takes 3 years to circumnavigate the world. And they stay in each port for 2 weeks, something like that. So you can really kind of get to explore it. So, and they're set up for doing business. They're targeting um, homeschoolers, mobile workers,
Yeah.
digital laptop people, and retirees. And that's their mobile lifestyle. So there's
Yeah.
so many ways that you can do it. You just need to figure out what's your way, um, and and what it is that you want to experience. What
Yeah.
it is that would be, the part of it that you want. Is it that you want to have cultural experiences? There's lots of ways to travel around the world. For instance, I could have gone and stayed in a beautiful villa in Spain for 6 months, taking care of this amazing couple's two puppies for free.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there's a lot of different
How do you
opportunities that you
find
can create.
those opportunities?
There's sites like Trusted House Sitters, Home Swap. There's various different sites. You can do some where you're paid as a pet sitter and some where you're not. You just get free accommodations.
Yeah.
There's home exchange things, so that if you have a home, you can go live in someone else's. They come live in yours. There's a bunch of different
Oh,
options.
that's cool.
If you want to live aboard cruises, Google that. There's a few of those, there's one called The World that's big and super expensive and huge,
Mhm.
but there's also smaller ones now that have 300 cabins, and so it's like a
Yeah.
village that floats around the world kind of thing.
That is so
Um,
cool.
what I would say though is it, I spent 3 months in Boquete in Panama, and there's a huge expat community there. Many of them, the majority of them, are older women. So what's really happening now, a big trend, is older people moving into mobile lifestyles of different kinds, whether it's an RV or moving to a different country, mostly because it's more affordable. The
Yeah.
reality that most people don't realize is um, that 65% of Canadians and between 50 to 90% of Americans cannot afford to retire. They don't have enough money to pay their bills, and the government can't afford to keep us paid, and so they need to work. So the challenge though is for many of them, whether it's a side hustle or a full-time business or trying to get work, good luck
Yeah.
in corporate
Yeah.
at 60 or 70 or 80. Many of them are also not retiring because they're not done. They're
Yeah.
just hashtag not done by a long shot. And
Yeah.
so these are the people that I really serve. They are moving into mobile living quite a lot in a variety of ways, sometimes because of the cost savings. But I do want to warn you, mobile living, especially if, for instance, you want to travel around in an RV, is often more expensive than having a place where you stay
Oh,
put.
wow. Yeah.
Um, in fact, it's depending on how you live, it's almost always a little more expensive to live a mobile lifestyle than it is to stay put. For instance, I'm Canadian, and every time I go to the US, there's a 40% exchange difference
Oh
between
my
35 and
gosh.
40%. So if it cost me $1 here, it cost me $1.40 there. That's a
Wow.
lot,
That is a lot.
so $1,000 rent here is $1,400 rent there. So you do have to factor that in, and really figure out the financial side of it so that you're making some wise decisions.
Mhm.
But you can also go and live somewhere where it's a third of the cost.
Yeah.
You asked me where my favorite place is. I would say basically Latin places. Central and South America are my favorite. I love Latin culture. I'm getting better at speaking Spanish. It's
Mhm.
more like Spanglish, but I'm
Yeah.
getting better. And I love the passion that they live with. They are very, generally passionate people. That's fun for me. So
Yeah.
um, I think you want to figure out what would be in. Oh, another little tip for people who want to
Yeah.
travel
I love this.
affordably. One of the things I did when I traveled through Central and South America is I went to Spanish schools. So in Guatemala and Honduras, I did this. And it used to be, this was 2007,
Yeah.
$175 a week. That gave you 7 nights accommodation in a host family's house, 2 or 3 meals a day, and 20 hours, 4 hours a day for 5 days a week of tutoring one-to-one with a teacher, Spanish
No
teacher.
way.
So for $175, all your accommodations, all your meals, training, and they took you on little excursions, 3 little,
Yeah.
cultural excursions, and you had half a day and the weekends to go explore and do whatever you wanted to do. That's a really great way to travel cheaply. You can go and stay somewhere for a month or 2 months, really get good at the language, and
Mhm.
it costs you a fraction of the cost of, living at home and so forth. So
And I
there's a
bet
lot
you
of
met
different things you can
amazing
do.
people. Yeah, I
Yeah.
bet you met amazing people.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh.
So, and that is one of my favorite places. Is basically is Guatemala. I love Guatemala and a lot of the places in there. So,
Yeah.
uh, so I would say be curious about humanity. Be curious about yourself. Have fun exploring. One of the things that I want to do is go to San Miguel de Allende in Mexico. I haven't yet, but I will,
Yeah.
because it's an art and food capital. I want to go there and take art classes and weld and do fun, funky things. So, what do you love to do, and how do you incorporate that in your life, whether you're sitting at home or whether you're traveling the world?
I love that.
Make your life about what you love. And, a lot of maturepreneur people now are incorporating that. How do I live a life I love and be able to make money and be able to do what I want to do? I think one of the best questions that you can ask yourself is, what do I want or what do I love? And how do I make that happen? And that'll take you into whatever lifestyle you want.
You have to dig a little deeper inside yourself. But I think that that's the benefit and the beauty of it is like that self exploration could actually lead to things that you didn't even anticipate just because you just put it out in the world that you're exploring that, you know, and like that's oh, I love this. Oh my gosh, Jannette, this was amazing. And I'm sure we're going to stop recording and you're going to come up with a million other things that you're
I
like,
just
oh,
thought
I
of
should have
3
said
other
this.
things I should tell you. Yes.
Well, maybe we save those as a teaser in the mailer that we put out for this. So,
there you go. That's a good idea.
yeah, if somebody wants to find you, how do they find? Because you speak all over. You are an amazing. You know, you help businesses grow. So if anybody wants to hire Jannette for a speaking gig, I mean, I know you've grown businesses like 320%. Like you're amazing at that part too. So. How
Well,
do they find you?
and on that note, one of the things that I'm going to be doing this summer is approaching RV companies about sponsoring my speaking tour, giving me an RV. We'll do a wrap and I'll promote them as I go and do my speaking tour about the Maturepreneur world, because a lot of what I'm speaking about is this world that people are not aware of. They don't know that there's so many, like literally there's just under 1 billion people right now on the planet that are over 55. Who either don't want to retire or can't afford to. Wow. That's a lot of people. And there is no services. There are no one's paying attention. It's an invisible market without support. So I'm really committed to changing that. So one of the places you can go to find me is maturepreneur.world. Okay. So that's mature and then PRENEUR .world. And that's about our upcoming event that we're doing in September in Calgary for maturepreneurs, really supporting the wisdom workforce and figuring out how to #not be done by a long shot. It's for those who are what I call refiring instead of retiring. That you can also find me on my podcast, the Maturepreneur Podcast, for those who are too inspired to retire. So we've got lots of different places you can find me. I'm on social media, and you can find me under the Purpose and Profit Sisterhood Facebook group community. Come and join us, and we'll talk about getting your business rocking and rolling.
Oh my gosh, this has been amazing. I cannot wait for like the feedback that I get and the follow-up and the show notes that I get to put together, because I'm going to go look at all these sites and start planning, my advanced stages of my travel life. Because I feel like I didn't do enough travel when I was younger, and now I want to go see everything, so thank you so much for being here. This has been
my
a joy.
Pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mariette. And thank you for being such an encourager of courage and people creating the life they want, because that's really, you're a stand for them to move forward and move into their lives. So I really appreciate anybody who helps people be courageous and create the world that they want to create.
Well, I mean, you're making waves, and if anybody listening to this works for an RV company, we're going to get her sponsored. We are going to take her on the road, and maybe I'll come spend a week with you in the RV somewhere.
That would be awesome. I think we would have a hoot. That would be so much fun. We could do our podcasts at different times. It'll be great.
We'll pick up Vinny. We'll just grab him and take him on the way.
That would be a blast. That would
He is so much fun. I know.
Okay, we should plan that. Let's not just say that. We should plan that.
Right. I think we should make it happen. So stay tuned. You will see the next stages of our life, and it's probably going to be on the road. I mean, Marriott's on the move. The Maturepreneur Maverick is going to be taking us somewhere, and it's going to be great. Thank you so much, Jannette.
Awesome. Thanks, Mariette. Great to meet you and be here. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I could go on forever and ever about moving you closer to your dreams, but I probably should save some thoughts for the next episode. A big thanks goes out to you for making time for me today. And making time for me, you're making time for future you, and we're both grateful. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe to the podcast, download the episodes, and leave me a 5-star review. I would really appreciate it. In return, if you go to my website, marriottsonthemove.com, and register for the Monday mailer, I'll send you a free Fred workbook to get your journey started. This is also where you can find all the show notes and all the ways to get in touch with me. A special thanks goes out to Rogue Media for its wisdom and partnership. Until next time, friends, keep moving forward towards your dreams. Oh, and the legal stuff. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. I am a certified coach, not a licensed therapist, and this is not meant to replace the professional advice of a physician, psychotherapist, or other qualified professionals. This is solely my perspective based on my own experience and training. Okay, now it's over. For reals. Bye for now.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.